I'll start that in a second. Okay, you're on.
Okay, my name is Jacob Mitchell. I'll be 17 in July. I'm not quite there yet, and I've lived on MDI my whole life, and this is my transition speech. So to start off, I'd like to mention that sports has always been a huge part of my life. I swam for the MDI Sharks since I was 7 years old. But when I look back at my childhood and my sports memories, I mainly focus on Acadian Little League. I spent years there, and I made friends and memories that I know I'll have for the rest of my life. For example, this was my last year of Little League. This was our all-star team. We had a tournament that we would compete in, and we went down to Southern Maine as a group, and we went to a Portland Sea Dogs game, which is like a feeder team for the MLB. And actually, we only got to see the 2-3 innings of the game before it was cut short by lightning. We were all standing and watching the game from the top of the dugout. We were looking out over the field, and then lightning struck, and a few kids panicked and ended up running off. And it's hard to believe that this guy right here just graduated yesterday, Max Shea. He's been one of my good friends forever, and I just can't believe that he's graduated. And then I also look back and I remember my dad. He spent countless hours with me, helping me get better, and a lot of yelling back and forth at each other, and just a lot of sacrifices that he made for me. And one pretty serious example is I have this mask that my coach, one of my coaches, Andy Shea, gave to my dad after I ended up shattering his eye socket and breaking his nose by hitting a baseball back when he didn't get behind an L screen and just hitting him in the face, and felt it was pretty awful. But the whole team, we all got together, and this is an old umpiring mask that they had for Little League, and Andy wrote on it to be worn within 50 feet of all ball fields. I wrote my dad's name on it. Sorry, hang on, I'll bring this back up.
No, it's not your fault. Don't say sorry. It's annoying. So wait, he wasn't behind you. It was a line drive out.
It was a line drive, so we have like an L screen. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a blocky L with a net over it, so that the pitcher, the coach, when he's throwing, can get behind the screen, so that if you hit it back at him, it just hits the screen. And my dad didn't quite get behind the screen, and so the ball came right back at him and hit him right between the eyes. And it was, after going to the doctor in Boston and stuff, we learned that it was fractions of an inch away from giving him permanent brain damage. So, yeah, he's done a lot for me with sports, certainly. But also, I'm looking back, he hasn't just made sacrifices and stuff like that for me and my brother with sports, but I fish, and I recently started fishing by myself last year, and without my dad, none of that would have been possible. He supported us, and he helped us so much, and yeah, I'm just seriously grateful to him for doing that for us. And then knowing that and knowing all my background, you can look at careers and possible careers that I could pursue. And just with a question, how has my childhood influenced what I want for my future? And I can kind of answer that later on by looking at my dad. And like any kid, really like any boy, I want to be just like my dad, except not in the sense that I want to work like what he does, but I want to be there with my kids and have the same relationship with people I care about that my dad does. And that's really important to me looking ahead. Of course, there's a lot of different careers that I could pursue where that is possible. And so to kind of narrow that down, I looked at a bunch of role models that I have, starting with my dad, of course. My dad works for Fairpoint, it's a telephone company. He works up in Ellsworth. He sits in a trailer all day and he splices wires together, which, I mean, not really something that I'm huge into, but at the same time, it's also not something that most people who have his job, they don't have the opportunity to go out and spend as much time as my dad does with us. He's one of the higher ones up in the garage, so he kind of has more freedom than other people, and so that's also not really that feasible. Then looking back, I look at Andy Shea, the man who gave my dad this mask. He was another huge childhood role model. He coached all the teams with my dad. He's just been a huge part of my life. Like I mentioned, I'm good friends with his kids, Max Shea, who just graduated, and his son Drew. And so he works as a financial planner, which which goes well with me because recently in Mr. Lawson's Honors U.S. History class, I took a really, really strong interest in investing and economics and stuff like that. So that's a pretty solid fit for me. And there's Andy, and there's my dad. Yeah, it's just that's from when my second to last year of Little League. That was before the All-Star team. That was a bunch of kids. There's his son somewhere in there. I can't find him, but that's what it was. That's a huge part of my childhood. And so I decided to talk to Andy. Like I've been super close with him forever. And so I went into town to Costin, McIsaac, and Shea, where he works with his partners. And then, so previous jobs, he didn't come out of college and immediately become a financial advisor. He started out actually with an internship and ended up being a chemical sales representative. And essentially what that is he would go to different distributors representing a company, and he would try to sell his product to that company, to that distributor. He lived all over the country. He lived in Massachusetts, he lived in Virginia, he even lived in Seattle at one point, where he was kind of a branch manager for a bunch of different sales representatives. So he controlled large areas of the West Coast, and he would have sales representatives, his old job, that he would send to different parts of the country. He made a lot of money doing that. He actually said that he drove a Range Rover as a company car, which is pretty, that's a lot of money. So why did he leave that? That's an obvious question. He was making a ton of money. Why did he leave? He wanted to feel like his role in society was important and that he was helping people. For example, retirement plans and helping people retire. He talked to me about he's helping this pharmacist in Michigan who's working 5 to 6 days a week, and he's looking to retire. And so he helped him with a plan where he could move to South Carolina in the winters and run a pharmacy down there, and then in the summers he would come up here and just work 3 days a week. So he's kind of leaning himself off that full-time job. And he was expecting kids soon. Him and his wife Leslyn were looking to have kids, and so he wanted to have something where he could live where he wanted to and make his own decisions as far as work goes. Obviously, shifting from a job like that to becoming a CFP, Certified Financial Planner, wasn't an easy process. He described it as a brick-by-brick process, and where every brick was a relationship, where you would develop a relationship with a client and then you'd be able to work with them. He said that multiple times he'd have someone young who'd come in, for example, and say, I'd like to buy this life insurance, when in reality it wasn't really necessary, and so he would tell them, I really wouldn't recommend that you buy this, and in doing so, he would lose business, but that would develop a relationship with that client, and that reputation would help him expand his business, which was really slow going. Also, in assuming more control over his job, like when he could work, he also took over more responsibilities. He didn't have that overhanging boss who could tell him what to do. He was responsible for himself, which, again, I think something that works well with me because, like I said, I fish in the summer, so I do have my own responsibilities, and I already have that control. I'm kind of accustomed to that. As far as problems that he would encounter, like when he left work, like things that would bother him, he worried because he felt responsible with anything that went wrong with his client's money, even if it was unavoidable. Like, for example, with the stock market crash, if he was managing the money of someone who was influenced by that, he would feel bad even though there wasn't anything he could do. He was doing everything he could. And doing everything he could was something that he mentioned as being very important, that even if it's not something that will make you money immediately, that guilt that you did something that may be considered dangerous or risky for your own personal gain is something that he can't tolerate that, so he wants to feel like he's doing it right. And now, of course, now that he's more established, he's been in the business for over 20 years, there's less room for error, and he's got more of a solid solid base than he did when he first started out. That brings me to what does he like about his job? He loves the feeling that he gets when he helps his clients. So like I mentioned, that retirement plan, that's something that's huge, but also more than anything, he appreciates that the job allows him to spend time with his kids and teach them life lessons similar to like what he was coaching us, having the ability to do that. For example, he specifically referenced this when I was talking to him. Last week we lost in our playoff, or we won our playoff game 1-0 before losing immediately after that. And we won because his oldest son drove in his youngest from second base on a line drive, one of very few hits that we had the whole game. And the reason his son was on second base was because he hit a fly ball really high in the air that should have been an easy catch, except it was kind of windy, the pitcher missed it, and his son was running as hard as he could to get along the bases, even though most other people would have just given up and would have said, "Oh, I'm out." But he kept going, and he made it to second base and ended up being in a position where his brother could drive him in for what would be the winning run. And I was on a team from when we were younger. We were playing in that All-Star tournament in Augusta, and his son did the same thing. He hit a skied fly ball, and he could have easily been out, but instead the pitcher dropped it, and he threw it to first because Drew, his kid, wasn't hustling. He just kind of stopped and just walked, and he likes having the ability to look back and see that he helped that growth and tell his son that he's proud of him for the changes that he's overcome, or the changes he's made. So now it's more about what the requirements are to be a successful CFP and what are the essential elements. It's important to look at the differences between a financial planner and a financial advisor. It's much more difficult to become a financial planner. Like I said, that's what Andy is. It requires a bachelor's degree and to take a CFP approved college course. Some schools offer those, some don't, and you got to take an exam, a certification exam. To become a financial advisor, you just need to pass this exam called the Series 65 exam. Andy said that he could get me ready for that in just a matter of weeks, that it doesn't really require much preparation or education, that it's just a matter of passing. And because of that, people that pass the exam and look to become a financial advisor have a fail rate of around 90%, just because they don't have the training, and because of that, people don't select them to be their clients. They don't want to be their client. They want the more educated financial planner. So this brings me to what steps I can take. So to start off, I'm taking classes in high school. Next year I'm going to be taking micro and macroeconomics classes with Mr. Lawson. I've taken calculus already, and I mean, of course, math is an essential element in finance and investing. And I plan to take Calc 3 at COA next year. I also have room to take an online course, and so I'm looking into taking an online course in finance or economics. Then for colleges, I mean, I have a far-fetched dream of going to UCLA because it's a beautiful campus. It's ranked as a top 20 economics and business schools by US News and Best Value Schools. It had the most applications, 90 to 7,000 in the entire country last year. Because of that, it's got such a low acceptance rate, around 18%, with it being 22% out of state. So it's, of course, it's a breach school. It's a very, very hard school to get into. It's one of the ones where you could have all the qualifications that you would think you need to go into that school and then still not get in. UCLA, for the CFP approved course, it offers an extension course that's available not just to the students, but to any financial advisor looking to upgrade to a CFP. They've got that class. And then another reach school because of a low acceptance rate, NYU in New York. It's ranked in the top 10 economics and business schools by US News. It had half the applicants of UCLA, but it was still around 50,000, which is ridiculous. It has a 35% acceptance rate, and the CFP approved course is 3 semesters at NYU, so it's a lot more in depth than what you would get from the extension course at UCLA. And for me, deciding what I want to do in the future, if I want to go as far away as the West Coast, or if that's something that's just too far, I can't handle that. That's a decision that I got to make sometime in the near future, because we are approaching senior year, and that's a pretty big decision. And that brings me to my sources, and here are my citations.
Questions for Jacob?
So a financial planner is someone who, like, they're not the people who would necessarily like take money and invest for a client. That's more like a financial.
What a CFP covers, because there's so much more education involved, they cover a much larger spectrum than a financial advisor. Financial advisors are more specified for the most part in a specific field like investing, but financial planners kind of cover the big picture and plan financial, make a financial plan for your future. So they might cover retirement and just stuff like that. That's what they'll do. Investing, they might help a kid try and get through school and like help invest his money. Just a much broader picture. They really take into account like the personal lives of the client that they're working with.
Do you think you would prefer to join some sort of institution or try to create your own?
I think that I personally would rather have like work with myself similar to what Andy does. I mean, he has partners, but he did grow his own business, and I think that's something that where he got to live where he wanted to. He got to kind of control where he liked his hours and stuff, even though it was more difficult. That's what I'd like to do.
That's sort of like my question. Did Andy spend time at all, like at a bank or a lending institution or anything like that first?
I'm not sure. I don't think he did. I'm not positive. He didn't really mention anything like that. But yeah, I'm not sure.
And do you know anything about other business schools that might be like if those things have like less than 20% acceptance rates? Just
yeah, that's
out of curiosity.
That's an issue I've been having. I was talking to my guidance counselor about it recently. I have been focused so much throughout my life on getting into the tip-top schools that I haven't really taken time to look at the ones that are more feasible and something that I would be interested in. So that's an issue that I got to talk about with guidance counselors and parents and stuff.
Right. And would you be open to them being in New England?
Oh yeah, no, I would. I'm all over the place right now. Like I look at California and I'm like, that seems awesome, but then it's also like that's so far away. And I look at colleges in New England. That's convenient. That's nice. I like Boston. I look at schools in Florida. I've looked everywhere, and I can't really narrow it down for the most part right now. I think it's either New England, East Coast, or like Upper East Coast, or California. If I'm gonna go far, then I might as well go somewhere I want to go.
You should check out Northeastern. They have a really cool business
Yeah,
school.
I was-
Internship program.
I was gonna put Northeastern on here, but then I realized that NYU, even though it is a selective school, it's not like I'm throwing just a bunch of really, really selective schools on there. Whereas if I were to put Northeastern on there, that's another like low 20s acceptance rate where it just seems ridiculous that I'm throwing a ton of really hard schools on there.
You don't want to go study with Warren Buffett in Omaha?
No, not really. I'd like to mainly. I'm not really sure where Omaha is on a map, but I'm gonna be honest here. But I would like to stay on the coast, anywhere.
Yeah.
I probably seem stupid because I don't know where Omaha is or what state it's in. But I would like to stay near the coast. I'd like to stay, like I said, like New England, Upper East Coast, or West Coast.
The poor flyover states, man. What else? Other questions for Jacob? I have one other quick question. How on earth does a financial planner survive in Bar Harbor? Like, who are the clients?
He's got clients down in Massachusetts. I didn't talk to him about those, but I know that from talking to his wife and stuff. He goes down to Boston every once in a while, or at least Massachusetts, to talk with them. He's got clients all over the place, not just in Bar Harbor.
That makes sense.
But with email.
Yeah, would you start off local and then probably
No,
expand?
yeah.
Is that how it generally?
I think that's that's how it goes. I'm not really sure on the process. It might even be that you start out in somewhere more populated and then you can kind of grow and then, because I know he lived in Massachusetts for a few years before they moved here. And so that might be where he got more clients and then he came back here and now he has those Massachusetts connections.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm all set.
Question. Oh yeah, there we go. Right on. Bye.